Good evening, YouTube. This is Tired Metalhead Weatherman. Hope you guys are having a good Saturday so far, and are setting up your plans for Sunday. It's a little late for me making videos on the weekend, but I honestly have been burned out from work and I needed to rest, so I pretty much just spent half the day freaking sleeping. But got a little bit to talk about with the weather today. Potential tropical cyclone one had went through Florida, and we have ongoing severe weather right now, which I've actually been looking at here. Kind of been scrambling to try to get this video going here. So we can see the potential tropical cyclone moving away from Florida now. Worst of the weather is over for you guys, but we do have ongoing severe weather around the central plains. Have a number of severe thunderstorm warnings up, as well as 2 severe thunderstorm watches, which include the states of Colorado, Kansas, and Nebraska. And we have also had 2 days that were originally at marginal risk, Sunday and Monday, now upgraded to slight risk. So we'll go over all of that as well today. So without further delay, let's get right into it. So we'll take a look at our day 1 slight risk, and we have a pretty sizable one. Main threat with this is going to be hail, but our tornado threat there is a tornado threat there. There is a 2% tornado threat for any area in the green within 25 miles of a given point. And then we have a much greater wind and hail threat, but I would be watching the hail threat more than anything, especially around this western half. Earlier they actually had a hatch risk, but it looks like they've done away with that for the day, but we'll have to keep a close eye on it. And then we will go to day 2. We have another slight risk area. It's the same, pretty much in the same areas, maybe a little bit further off to the east. We have a tornado threat, which is pretty much in the same areas, but now we're including areas like Omaha, Lincoln, and Des Moines in the severe weather threat. Then for the wind and hail threat, we're pushing a little further south. We're starting to include Tulsa and a small area of Arkansas, and maybe about the western half of Missouri as well. Our greatest threat for weather is the slight risk area, which is including Lincoln. Parts of Omaha even, I would say, are either just on that slight risk line or just barely within it. We have Norfolk as well, and Valentine in play, McCook. Then in Kansas we have Wichita, Garden City, and Colby. And the same goes for the hail threat. And then on the western half of that, we have a significant hail threat. So if you're in McCook, Colby, Garden City, and Valentine, you might have to watch out for some larger hail, above 2 inches in diameter. Then we go to our day 3. And this is another new slight risk area, a little bit smaller in stature, but this is including, once again, Colorado, Kansas, and the smallest little sliver Oklahoma, even including Woodward. And then our marginal risk makes a little L shape here, which is including the city of Springfield, Missouri. We have the northern sliver of Arkansas, and then this goes all the way back up into Nebraska, parts of Colorado, even flirting with that line on Wyoming as well, and a tiny little piece of South Dakota. Since this is at the 72-hour mark, according to the Storm Prediction Center, we can't really get a look at the hazard type at the moment. But basically, from what I've been seeing with this storm system, we're kind of trending towards more of a wind and hail threat, especially the hail threat. With hail, we always look at higher lapse rates, so let's get right into it here. And if you can see the pinks here, you pretty much know that the lapse rates are ridiculously high, almost maxed out, I would even say. We're sitting at 9.5s. We can also use the sounding here to get a look at our CAPE values, our convective available potential energy, and we can see that we are nearing 3,000 joules per kilogram. More than sufficient enough for severe weather. You can see our lapse rates at the low to mid levels. So some pretty impressive rates. More than sufficient enough for severe weather. and there is no real sort of cap to stop them from forming here. Thankfully, this setup doesn't really lend itself to being a major tornado threat, but hail and wind can still do a lot of damage in its own right. So we'll move this along, and these lapse rates just hang around all through this weekend. Even on Sunday, we have some pretty almost maxed out rates once more. And then going into Monday, they're still lingering around the Central Plains. And we'll even go as far as looking into Tuesday, and we're still seeing impressive rates. We'll even go as far as this model can go 90 hours. Even on Wednesday, we may have to watch the Southern Plains for some large hail. So now, let's take a look at what the radar reflectivity could look like. Something everyone's pretty familiar with at this point. So we see our little bit of storms right here, right now. This is our area of interest, our slight risk for today and tonight. See a little line of storms form up. It falls apart pretty quick. And then around Sunday, we have an area of redevelopment. It's a little bit further to the north. And I could probably I'm actually going to see if I can't try to scoop this up a little bit. That might be a little too much, but we're going to try it. It resets me whenever I do that. That's one thing that's kind of a bother. But here we are. It's about where we had left off, and we'll see this line of storms form up here, affecting Iowa into the late night and maybe even into the overnight hours. Works its way into Kansas and Missouri, and then shortly after that kind of falls apart. We may have to watch the Ohio Valley for a couple of post-severe storms on Monday, but you definitely are in for some unsettled weather. And then on Tuesday, we'll watch all that move off to the east. Then on Tuesday evening, we might have to watch the southeast for maybe some post-severe storms, but the main threat is going to be further to the south. We're going to switch back. We're going to try to switch back. I remember my little time frame here. We were about 72 hours out. Alright, here we are. So we're watching this move off to the east, and then our next area of development forms right about here, right around the Central Plains, pushes south, and once it gets into Oklahoma, that's when things will really start to pick up on Wednesday. Here's the time right here that I'm expecting this to occur. Now, because it says 12Z, this looks like a little bit more of an early morning threat, but because we're towards the end of this model, things will probably change for this very quickly. Also want to keep in mind here that I did do a long-range forecast video, so I'll leave a little card up here during this little time frame that I'm talking right now, and I'll just want to remind you, just based off what I said on that video, this is kind of lining up with what I've been mentioning, that as we get closer towards the middle of the month, the severe weather is going to start to pick back up again. And we're going to be in this back and forth pattern of warm and cold, especially towards the eastern half of the country. So now that we've done that, let's talk about our potential tropical cyclone, which is almost no longer a threat to land, which is pretty much no longer a threat to land. Might have to watch this a little bit closely towards Bermuda. I don't really expect it to get there. I think it's going to miss it, to be honest. But we'll have to watch it still. But this has moved off from Florida now. The forward speed has increased tremendously. We've now gone up a whole 10 miles an hour. We are moving at 18 miles an hour, 16 knots. Central pressure has actually dropped a bit after it's moved over Florida. Before, when I last looked at it, it was sitting at about maybe 1,003 millibars. We've actually dropped down now to 999 millibars, and this storm's winds have increased to 45 miles an hour, 40 knots. But the problem, it's still having the same problem. It cannot get anything to form on its western, any sort of storms, cloud cover to form on its western flank, and you need that to be considered a tropical system. So we'll have to watch. So we'll just watch this thing move off out into the ocean, become a fish storm, and as this thing moves further and further off to the north and east, this will increase the surf and rip currents around the entire eastern coast as this moves off. So if you're planning to be out on the beaches here, anywhere on the east coast, just be on guard for rip currents. Make sure you're listening to your local officials. So we're gonna take a look at the 5-day weather outlook, see if there's any chance of anything popping up beyond this, and there's currently not. We'll check the Eastern Pacific as well, just to make sure nothing sneaks up on us here. Nothing in the 2-day or 5-day outlook from that. So we should be good for a while. I think I'll make a video tomorrow, just kind of giving a tropical outlook right now. There is a little bit more to talk about on that there. But that will be for tomorrow's video. This is all I got for you guys tonight. Not trying to talk your head off too much. But that being said, this has been Tire Metalhead Weatherman. I hope you guys have a good Saturday night. And I will see you on the next video.